We can most effectively assess someone's intelligence by testing them to find out their IQ score. However, lots of articles online keep saying that there are visual shortcuts we can use instead. Apparently, all it takes is observing the right part of someone's body and inferring from there. But can we really look at someone's fingernails to find out if they have fewer brain cells than Homer Simpson? That's what we're going to find out now. A bit of a disclaimer first before starting this countdown: all entries listed are not to be taken as an absolute measure. Although a good number of these entries are backed by scientific research, they will never accurately represent the variety of differences of the world population. Number 10. Hands. Susan Golden Meadow, chair of developmental psychology at the University of Chicago, has researched the subject of reinforced acquisition of information with hand gestures over the years. The basic concept is that hand gestures represent what is known as embodied cognition. That is, hands are able to form expressions that indirectly show how we work out our thoughts. During her TED Talk in 2011, she demonstrated how specific child subjects in one experiment showed different levels of understanding when children reacted and created different explanatory gestures of varying complexities to the same given problem or situation. This was further demonstrated with other similar child subjects, as they were also able to pick up information significantly better when the appropriate representational gestures were added to explanations. In another similar research that also involved the topic of hands representing intelligence, German scientists at the Humboldt University of Berlin also demonstrated in a controlled experiment that gestures are more prevalent in people with higher fluid intelligence. Based on the results of their tests, the higher the participants rated fluid intelligence, the higher the tendency to explain things using representational hand and arm gestures. So by using hand gestures, you can tell someone might have a better understanding than someone not using them, as their gestures try to move, mold, and form around what the speaker is currently referring or explaining. Number 9. Fingers and nails. The lunula, which is the white crescent thing in your fingernails, is believed to have been linked to overall body health for many centuries. The ancient Chinese in particular believed that the middle finger's lunula is said to be affected by the body's cardiovascular and nervous system. For example, higher susceptibility to stress and thus lower mental performance is often attributed to the formation of the lunula. As promising as it sounds, however, this is yet to be clinically proven and is often regarded as a traditional superstition. As for fingers, one specific research paper at the University of Alberta showed a possible relation between intelligence and the digit ratio, which is the average predicted finger lengths in accordance to hormone production levels and thus body development rates during an infant's formative months. Men usually have ring fingers that are longer than index fingers, so their finger ratio is lower than 1. In females, the two fingers are more likely to be the same length. Because of this sex difference, some scientists believe that a low ratio could be a marker for higher prenatal testosterone levels, although it's not clear how the hormone might influence finger development. With the girls, there was no correlation between finger ratio and numeracy, but those with higher ratios, presumably indicating lower testosterone levels, had better scores on verbal abilities. Long ring fingers were also loosely associated with better financial trading skills. This was particularly prevalent in men, as proven by yet another similar research paper by the University of Bath in the UK. In this research, index and ring finger length differences also often coincided with better analytical and mathematical performance due to the perceived increase in male-oriented hormone levels before birth. Number 8. Toes. Throughout the ages, abnormal foot proportions have been traditionally associated with intelligence. The most famous example, perhaps, is the medical condition known as Morton's toe. Long story short, if you have a much bigger index toe than the actual big hallux toe, then it is said that you have a good capacity for mental acuity. Several other cultures also followed similar traditions of valuing bigger toes than the usual big toe. In fact, another term for Morton's toe is Greek foot. One direct explanation as to why the big toe phenomenon has been linked to intelligence is that Morton's toe is often genetic in nature, which means the trait is passed down through families and is then correlated to the inheritance of certain biological characteristics. It is most likely that intelligence eventually became the most important out of all these traits and was the one that got associated with this physical condition. Number 7. Earlobes. Researchers at the Harvard University in 2011 have discovered a somewhat weird correlation between asymmetrical earlobes and people with relatively exceptional leadership potentials. The sample group that had markedly bigger earlobes on one side was reported to be able to perform better by at least 20%. The study was of course presented with a strong disclaimer. However, the researchers posited that asymmetrical earlobes may yet be another specific inherited trait, much in the same manner as Morton's toe. The abnormal earlobes were shown to be part of a genetic set of traits, which as a whole is packaged with other qualities like increased levels of learning. Also, people who had such physical qualities often grew up being more sensitive about information around them, though this connection is linked to leadership qualities anyway, so it is somewhat expected given the aforementioned correlation. Number 6. Hair. The specific tidbit that led to a widespread debate related to hair and intelligence is attributed to a supposed research project conducted in the 1990s. Led by psychiatrist Dr. Ika Rakudi Elias, the study focused on medical students in the United States, and the results have pointed that at least 45% of the better trained and educated sample were actually hairier than the rest. The study even looked at the top IQ levels of at least 117 Mensa members, with almost all of them observed to also have thick body hair. Unfortunately, the research did not indicate the cause of this correlation, so we're unsure as to whether body hair is really attributed to higher intelligence. This could well be just another form of generation inheritance. Simply put, people from the past just happen to have found wise men, who also by chance were bushy, to be more attractive, thus seeding a new generation that have both specific traits. Number 5. Lips. There are no direct peer-reviewed studies or institutional research that discusses lips as an indicator of intelligence. That being said, it is generally believed that thinner lips are associated with higher potential intelligence for men. One simple explanation for this is that lip size affects someone's level of mouth articulation. Every word is pronounced clearer with thinner lips compared to other lip shapes or sizes, and this makes it seem as if people with thinner lips are more intelligent. On the flip side, international women's magazine Cosmopolitan pointed out that a well-defined Cupid's bow shaped upper lip is a sign of feminine wit, not the academic genius type of intellect, but a more practical, more pragmatic variety. Also, like in men's thin lips, such lip shapes also make mouth articulation more apparent, thus increasing someone's intellectual appeal. Number 4. Hips. In 2009, researchers at the universities of Pittsburgh and California Santa Barbara surveyed at least 15,000 women and found out that the iconic sexy hourglass figure may have an indirect link to someone's IQ. Specifically, data from cognitive tests and data of the hip-to-waist ratio of the very same subjects is somehow related to each other. The bigger the hip measurement difference, the higher the subject's IQ appears to be. The results not only reflected on female subjects, but even seemed to extend to their children as well. The reason for this correlation? The curvier, sexier bodies apparently represented higher levels of omega-3 fatty acids, an essential body fat directly responsible for brain growth in developing infants. Of course, this is not universal across all women, but the link was demonstrated to be sufficient enough to put forward a solid conclusion for the study. Number 3. Eye color. Eye color has never been proven to have any significant factor in determining one's personal intellectual capacity. It is more of an ethnicity thing, and as such, a person's related eye color will more likely show signs of mental acuity that reflects the dominant personality and culture associated with the color. With that said, the eye color that is most closely related to wit and innovative thinking is green. Green eyes are typically developed from a combination of vastly different surface pigmentation, indicating a relatively varied gene pool among those who have it. People who have green eyes also usually have ancestries traced to areas close to North, Central, and Western Europe. This combination of genetic diversity is thought to lead to signs of higher intelligence. Number 2. Head. Determining someone's intelligence from the size of their head is a far more understandable concept than any other on this list, because obviously it would suggest they have a bigger brain. Barring any extreme artificial cranial deformation practices, the general estimate according to the Scientific American is that there is a variability of about 9 to 16% in overall mental acuity when the difference in head size is considered. In this case, there really is a tangible difference, especially considering the difference of humans compared to other similarly intelligent creatures with larger brains, such as dolphins, octopus, and elephants. Unfortunately, this somewhat unimpressive variance factor also means that even with the size relation, the difference won't be that of a genius and an imbecile. In fact, due to various performance factors, this may not even be apparent unless we're talking about direct memory evaluation. In addition, the ratio of a person's head size in comparison to the rest of the body is also considered. Thus, taller people won't necessarily have the default advantage. Before I reveal the most amazing example, I'd like to remind you to subscribe if you've enjoyed this video. We upload amazing fact-filled list videos daily. Also, make sure to click that bell icon to stay updated, or you'll regret missing out on some amazing knowledge that could have filled your brain. Now let's get back to it. Number 1. Height. Have you heard of the Flynn effect? It refers to the substantial and long-sustained increase in IQ test scores from roughly 1930 to the present day. In other words, people seem to be getting smarter over time. So how does this relate to the link between height and intelligence? Well, nutrition is one explanation for rising height and intelligence over time. It has been suggested that increases in average height in response to improved nutrition have been accompanied by an increase in brain size and is one explanation for an overall rise in measured intelligence among all tested populations. However, it is important to realize that this difference in height and intelligence is only related to potential and realized height. If your genetics only enable you to grow to 5'2" and you grow to that height, it's likely your brain has also developed to its full potential. So nutrition is also unlikely to affect your mental capacity. But other ideas relating to the link between height and intelligence have also been proposed. A somewhat old 2011 peer-reviewed research paper submitted at the National Center for Biotechnology Information presented a positive correlation between genetics and environmental elements which affect the intelligence versus height ratio. Long story short, the summary of the report has suggested that intelligence does seem to rise with height, but mainly due to other more positive health factors. Another similar academic study made 2 years later in 2013 backed this idea even further with the observation that this apparent genetic prevalence is linked to subsequent generations of selective mating. Tall people that are indeed actually intelligent got prioritized by female mates within the gene pool, with succeeding generations repeating the same pattern until today. Health may be subjective, but these studies do show that it is possible for certain genetic characteristics, such as height, to be linked together within generations of people. Are you convinced by my explanations, or do you think they're all just loose correlations? Let me know what you think in the comments section down below, and thanks for watching.